Sayın Rektör,
Distinguished President, distinguished Vice President, distinguished members of the faculty, and dear guests, we would like to welcome you to this event on advancing psychosocial resilience in the treatment of addiction and coexisting issues, jointly organized by iCAAD and USKUDAR University. With your permission, I will lay out today's agenda. We will start with a moment of silence and Turkish national anthem, and then we're going to have opening speeches and presentations by Dr. Nevzat Tarhan and Professor Nesrin Dilbaz. This will be followed by a presentation by Professor Gültekin Öger, and after a 15-minute coffee break, we're going to hear from Dr. Fethi Flafel, who is the director of Palestine Red Crescent Society Resource Center. And then we're going to have refreshments, lunch, and several other events. We would now like to invite you to a minute of silence in the beloved memory of Mustafa Kemal Atatürk and his companions, which will be followed by Turkish national anthem. Dear guests, we are now going to see a corporate promotional video of our university. Let's watch it together.
Tüm İslam'la ilgili bilgileri bilimsel bir yakınlık tanesi olan yeni bir bilimsel kurul belki de çok daha fazlası. Türkiye'nin ilk davranış ve sağlık temalı üniversitesinde okuma ayrıcaları 2500 metrekarelik laboratuvarları, Türkiye'nin tüm kaynaklara erişim sağlayan kütüphane, dünya standartlarında bilim yazarlar, nöro pazarlama alanında ilk yolunu gerçekleştirenler, okul, hastane bilgiye sertifikalı, Erasmus Plus imkanı, pozitif psikolojinin Türkiye'deki ilk kurayısı, teknolojinin eğitim, Almanya temsilciliğiyle küresel eğitim, Greymark Kuluçka Merkezi'ne fikirleri gerçeğe dönüştürme, farklı alanlara yönelik geniş yelpazedeki uygulama ve araştırma merkezleri, sportif ve kültürel faaliyetler, geniş burs imkanları, 70'den fazla öğrenci grubuyla sosyal ve özgürlükçü bir ortam, sağlık bilgileri, mühendislik ve doğa bilimleri, insan ve toplum bilgileri, hizmetleri, iletişim, sağlık hizmetleri ve geleceğine dair her şey. Aklında ne varsa Üsküdar'da. Üsküdar Üniversitesi.
Devam edeyim mi? Sayın konuklarımız.
Dear guests, we're now going to hear from Mr. Christopher Saraway, the director of iCAAD.
Speaking in English, I'm sorry, my Turkish is very minimal. My name is Christoph Sarvine. I am the academic director of iCAAD and one of the founder. I am a psychologist, researcher, but I also see a lot of clients, so I practice. Just a word about iCAAD. iCAAD is an international independent organization which mission is to promote, expand, and share knowledge about addiction, associated disorder, mental health, behavioral health, emotional health all over the world. And it is a true honor to be amongst you today in Istanbul. That's my first time in Istanbul, and I'm extremely proud and feel privileged to be here with you. I just want to say a few things. I've been this year conferencing with iCAAD in Rome, in Stockholm, in Paris, in Brussels, and I'm missing somewhere probably. I'm sorry. And today in Istanbul, and it's amazing to see how people are keen to try to understand addiction. Why is it? Well, converging messages between 15 and 20% of the population will cross addiction during their life. That's much more than just a flu epidemic. Another figure, every day, 3 747 jumbo jet crashing is the equivalent of the toll addiction takes on the human race. By the time I have finished this speech, 4 people in the US will have gone through an overdose from opiates addiction, and probably by the time Professor Tassan will start speaking, someone will have died. 63% of patients coming to treatment for addiction present comorbidity. Mental health is very complex. This is what we learned over the last 15 years. It's extremely complex. 77% of patients seeking for help for addiction have 3 plus up to 5 different addictions, not only substance but behaviors as well. So you're here today, I'm here today because I just, as a personal human being, as an individual, I cannot just stand with 20% of my brothers being in pain and killing themselves from addiction. So I'm very proud to be here today, and I wish you a very, very warm welcome. And we're going to talk today about, well, comorbidity, as I just mentioned. We're going to talk about how to conceptualize addiction better. We learn a lot every day. We're going to talk about innovation with TMS, electrical therapy. Great research coming up right now, especially with gambling in Italy. Just heard that last week when I was doing a conference there. We're going to try to also understand how to help people with massive emotional traumatic pain with Dr. Flaffel later in the day. And this afternoon we're going to try to get into small workshop to experience how it is to work together, because there's no way we can solve addiction and treat addiction and understand addiction if we don't work all together. Social workers, nurses, GPs, specialists, psychiatrists, because we need to join forces. 20% of the population, not 2%, 20%. 20% requires a solid team, multidisciplinary work. So we invite you this afternoon to experience that through a workshop where it's a lot about process more than content, as my mentor Irving Yalom used to say. It's about trying to understand how we work together when we speak different languages, not linguistic languages, but professional languages. We're coming from the place of nursing, we're coming from the place of social working. We see things differently, and they're all part of a puzzle. The puzzle of relieving the human pain and the human sufferance. People are dying every day, my friends, my brothers. So a very warm welcome to all of you. Thank you so much.
Hocamıza teşekkür ediyoruz.
We would like to thank the speaker, distinguished participants. there is the coexistence of addiction with the use of substances. Transcranial magnetic stimulation, deep TMS, are some of the main themes from the speeches of the opening speech of Professor Nevzat Tarhan. Distinguished guests, distinguished representatives of iCAAD, or iCAAD as we say in Turkey, I would like to express how happy and grateful we are that this event is being held at USKUDAR University. You have really honored us with your presence, and we are truly talking about an epidemic of addiction. Addiction, violence, and divorce. These three social wounds are increasing at geometric speeds around the world, and it is almost like an epidemic. We can clearly say events of violence are increasing as the statistics indicate. So medical treatment in addiction is not enough. You are applying some detox, and yet in order to keep people from using again, there are a lot of different opinions or camps as to what should be done in order to keep people clean, and this kind of scientific events are important to come up with some kind of consensus and an exchange of experiences, all of which will hopefully serve to come up with answers to those questions. So we are thankful. In our clinical experience, there are two main important areas in the treatment of addiction. The first one is disturbed neuroplasticity in addicted people. There might be different opinions here, but I have a clinical background and I have science background, and our science background says we don't have enough evidence, but our clinical background says in terms of a compulsory treatment of these people, there is a need for a more aggressive treatment because their neuroplasticity is disturbed. Is a person free to harm himself? This is the important question. Does a person have the right to self-inflict wounds or hurt themselves? Well, there are some practices in Nordic countries interpreting this as a domain of freedom, restricting people from other people and letting them be as long as they don't hurt others. I mean, how can we let such a person be who is almost suicidal, because this is passive suicide? And how can you medically consent to passive suicide? That's my personal opinion, and it is another academic discussion. And our clinician identity says we need to uphold the good of the patient. So we need to apply the strongest treatments in a clinical environment in a compulsory fashion until the plasticity of these persons are restored to normal levels. And personally I find that important. Another important question is why do people abuse substances? Why one sibling does it and why another one doesn't do it? Why not everybody in a society doesn't do it? Well, in those people who abuse substances, we know that they have attachment problems since they fail to properly choose an object of attachment, or they cannot manage this orientation of theirs. They can't find a social object or a candidate. They try to attach to the substance. It's like a shortcut for the brain in order to fulfill this need of attachment. And as you might know, in addiction research, dopamine and oxytocin are quite emphasized, and dopamine is related to love. And in a person who is in love, there are two things. One, he would be fixed on the person he loves. The second one is a kind of an intoxication. And similar thing is going on with a substance abuser, and in the same way they are fixated on the substance, and they are like intoxicated. And so the brain chemistry of a person in love is very similar to that of a person who is an addict. So love is an attachment problem, and as you know, love is in Arabic comes from the word ishq, and it's like an ivy. The ivy is attached so strongly to something, and it creates some kind of symbiosis, so that if that thing dies, the ivy will die itself. So these people, they exist, and they cease to exist with the substance, and that's their only focus of interest. All their emotions, all their experiences are concentrated on this substance. So in saying that, I want to say, and love is an attachment problem, and it's a pathological attachment without the use of substance. And this addiction patients, they are using a substance, or maybe they have some kind of virtual addiction. So you get some kind of biological or chemical object which will serve the need for attachment. As you might know, the Minnesota model is being discussed, in which model, if a person is abusing substances, or if he feels like using again, if he finds someone to call, the risk of starting again is averted, because they need some form of attachment. They need someone they can call day and night, say hello. And C4 is doing work to that end, so that the need for attachment can be managed properly in such persons. That's what we need to do in addicts. Another hormone was oxytocin, as I said. I heard that a spray version of oxytocin was produced in Switzerland, and when oxytocin is administered to male monkeys, they take more interest in their spouses, and they say, couple therapists recommend this spray formed oxytocin into their noses before going to bed. Well, maybe the natural one is ideal, but so if you're working on addiction, you need to work more on attachment and replace biological attachment with social attachment if possible. And I've come across a talk on TED Talks, and it talks about an experiment on mice. The mice are made addicted to cocaine, and there is a button they can push which would release cocaine, and this mouse keeps pushing the button and taking the cocaine until it dies. And similar mice they put in a social environment, and this reduces the possibility of pushing the button over and over again. So social attachment replaces biological or chemical attachment. So social relationships, social resilience is actually stopping people from substance abuse. The famous cardiologist Debicki made an interview recently, and he says the following. He's around the age of 90. He was around the age of 90. He says, everything I know until now, if I knew it 30 years ago, he said, by operating, I am saving 150 persons. He said, if I was wise enough, I would have stopped 1.5 million people from dying from cardiac problems. So we need to be proactive. We need to take preventive measures. How can we strengthen their social networks? How can we increase their social supports? Protection and prevention are important concepts to visit, and the biggest need in the society, biggest need on the part of people is what can we do in order to eliminate addiction in the first place. And so at this meeting we are going to discuss that, and this is one of the subtitles of that meeting: increasing social resilience and strengthening social relationships. If a person feels that he is a part of the social fabric, he will not easily become an addict. So if we can make them feel that, we're now talking about Industry 4.0. Maybe in 10 years time we're going to talk about social 5.0. So maybe it's weird coming from me as a medical person, but developments in social fields are going to have a huge impact on the future of humanity. Thank you very much. We would like to thank Professor Tarhan, and now we're going to hear from Professor Nesrin Dilbaz, who is going to talk about the coexistence of addiction with other problems and the deep TMS, complex comorbidity of substance use disorders with psychiatric disorders, latest treatment and deep TMS. Alright, thank you very much, dear guests. Allow me to welcome you all on behalf of my institution. We are proud to have you here. I'd like to thank my dear friend Rick and also Sam, because in order to have this meeting today, we've been working for a long time together, and of course my working colleagues Onur and the entire team, because we spend a lot of time in the kitchen because it's the first time we're holding this kind of event with iCAAD. It's the first, but it will not be the last one. Every year we want to do this event with a different theme and presenting latest developments on addiction in our country, sharing it with you professionals and eliminating stigmatization. So, our distinguished president mentioned in his speech that one of the main points of today's meeting is to be able to increase a psychosocial resilience in both treatment and protection. I also believe we need to work on resilience. My dear friend Kathleen gave us a training on trauma 2 years ago, and trauma and addiction is very close to one another, and they are both related to resilience. I mean, we know that not all of the people that were subject to trauma develop PTSD afterwards. Similarly, some people do never start abusing substances, or even if they try, some of them will not start or become addicts. So I believe resilience is important in not just protection or prevention, but also in treatment. What kind of treatment should we apply in order to increase resilience in our patients? And this is being studied in trauma as we speak. Resiliency in PTSD is a popular research field, and I'm sure after some time we will see similar studies in addiction as well. In order to be able to do that, we need to work not just on the addict or the potential addict, but also their family and social surroundings. And the AMATEM department and the team of USKUDAR Brain Hospital, we are focusing on the entire family. We're talking about rehabilitating the family, and it's becoming more and more a part of our treatment methodology. So it's not just about the individual, it's about the family, the surroundings. Social ties need to be restored. So after this brief introduction, without taking too much time of yours, addiction or substance abuse disorder. I like this term better because when we say addiction, people deny that they're addicted. They say, I use it, I'm not addicted. So when we say substance abuse or substance use, people feel it applies to them. Well, there are 13 treatment principles accepted worldwide, and it's not only medical. It includes medical, it includes protection from communicable diseases and many other topics. And now we're going to talk about latest treatment methodologies and modalities, and specifically deep TMS. And as it was said in the introduction, deep TMS is now being used in gambling, addiction, and we're using it in our clinic. So addiction is a chronic problem, and maybe this is something not accepted by the addicted or their relatives, but addiction is a disease of the brain. It's a compulsive behavior, and it goes in relapses, and it can be treated. These are our most important treatment principles. In defining efficient treatment, I will talk about 13 principles. I will not name any therapies, any drugs. I will only talk about treatment principles, so that in the afternoon roundtables we can work on some cases. Sam has prepared for us some cases, thankfully, and we're going to apply those treatment principles to those cases. So defining effective treatments. The main purpose is to lock on target. The first one is, of course, to cope with the deprivation after stopping abuse. This is the medical side, but that's not the whole story. But we need to restore a social functionality of this individual and within his family and social surroundings. I'm a medical doctor, and we're never talking about eliminating the disease. Sometimes my patient come and ask, when will I stop this medication? Will I be ill again? And I say, which diseases do not repeat? Measles, for example, right? You have it once in life. But whichever disease you have had once, you have a higher likelihood of repeating that disease compared to a person who's never had that disease. So this is fact. So every medical disease repeats. If you had sinusitis once, and if you had germs settled in there in your nose, it means you are kind of predisposed, and your nose anatomy is suitable for these germs to settle in. So we should always remember addiction is repeatable, and yet, unlike other conditions, in addiction and substance abuse, there is the criminal aspect as well. So we should understand that treatment here is related to a reduction of crime and substantially as well. So reducing substance abuse by 40 to 60%, reducing criminal behaviors 40 to 60%, and increasing functionality at 40 to 60%. These are realistic numbers. So what we expect is each time increase it more than what it was.
Onun için
Of course, the treatment has an important cost, but here the important point is that each penny, each dollar paid for the treatment, you save $7. For that reason, the policymakers in the country, especially the ones that are working on addiction, when they invest in the addiction area, each dollar that they invest there, it provides $7 for them. So it's a right investment for the future of the country. We said that it's a brain disease and it has effects on behaviors. Here we have a control group, we have a cocaine user here, and you can see the abuse, and there's the relapses because the brain is in disorder, and the brain requires to use this kind of substance, and this is type 1 diabetes, and this the relapse of addiction is similar to the to this hypertension situation, and we see that the asthma is also comes back, and this shows that this kind of drug abuse is a kind of disease, and additional treatment for treatment, and the disease should be tracked very well. 1 month ago, my friend Professor Stefan Stell has been here, and as we have spoken in here, he's the founder, let's say, the psychopharmacology and also he felt that the British people, when they learn how to ride horse, they fall down 7 times from a horse. So it's the same thing. So also in our country, riding a horse is some kind of traditional issue, but what you want to mean here is that it can relapse at least 7 times. That's why there should be a good monitoring of the patient and good care of the patient. So here, when we look here, there should be good evaluation, a first step treatment, so some therapeutic initiatives are important, and also the management of the patient is very important. We have a whole package, so not only the evaluation of the patient is important, but also the medical treatment is not enough alone. It should be a holistic approach. When we say the treatment, we say that we talk about the management of the patient. So the management is important, and we know that the treatment is useful, but there is no one single treatment for each patient, but it's a tailor-made treatment, and each kind of new development gives us a new possibility. And the most important part that is that the treatment should be accessible anytime. So people living in social countries must have access to that treatment anytime. And I think we are lucky from that point of view in our country, because we have treatment centers where the patients can have access to those treatments. And maybe their number is not enough, but I believe that their numbers will increase within time, and we will ensure that we will have good results. And now let's compare it with diabetes, for example. We said that it's curable, and also in the diabetes the result is like this: you can lower the blood sugar during the treatment, and it can go up afterwards. But of course this is the same thing, but here what we see, the movement from pre and to post, and this doesn't show that the treatment is unsuccessful. But of course this is a successful treatment, but the process is longer, and there should be a kind of tracking and follow-up of the patient. And what do we do in our clinics? When we first see the patient, we tell to the patient and to his relatives, we tell them that they will be together with us for 1 year. It doesn't mean that we will hospitalize that person, but our contract with you is for 1 year, and so we will have a long journey together with you. Of course, one part of that, for 3 or 4 weeks, you will be hospitalized, but we have some motivational negotiation techniques, and we are trying to make them ready for departure for the journey. And also the treatment should continue until which time? This is a question. Until there's a stable behavioral change. It differs according to persons, and it differs according to the substance used. So less than 90 days, more than 90 days. So you can see, so we can stop the negative issues if we have a longer treatment duration. When we first place the patient, first one, the thing that we have to do, we have to understand his strength. What is the situation with his family? What is his situation with his work? And also we should analyze the weaknesses, his spiritual situation, physical situation, his social status, etc. and all that data are also evaluated. Can I take some water? Thank you. Now our fifth principle is to have the right services for the success of the therapy. So we are here, as a matter of fact, for this reason. So we need to ensure all this kind of services to a patient. We have to work together as a part of the team. This service cannot be given by a doctor alone or by the social services specialist alone. Nobody can do it alone. Even the policy makers should participate to this process, and within the country there should be developed the policies for this. And of course I especially place the HIV here, and also we are working in this area together with hepatitis C, and also we are scanning for hepatitis C, and we are working together with gastroenterologists, and we are talking about how to treat the hepatitis C, and it can be zeroed within 3 months, really. So it should be just tested. If you find it, and when we make the treatment, we can get very big successes. And the sixth one, the use of substance during treatment should be monitored very tightly. It is not necessary to control the patient directly. They ask me all the time, do you want to control me? No, I don't control you, but I'm just following you. I'm just tracking, and we are tracking if your treatment is successful or not. And when we tell them, okay, we are also tracking ourselves, they don't act. Then when we don't act in an autocratic manner, they feel better. We have a good team. When the patient comes in, we are scanning the patient, and then we are sending him to the university for advanced measurements, and we have a very comprehensive laboratory to make this all kinds of urine tests, etc. And of course you need to understand his situation about the crime, and also he is in a relationship. The first urgency is of course, the first thing is to look for this kind of rage and problem solving, and problems in family, in some spiritual problems, especially during those initiatives. There are some works done, there are some effective ones, non-effective ones, and some the ones that are creating hopes. And generally people say that the long-term treatments are very important, and also the drug treatment and contingency therapy is important, and the cycle should be broken, and should be worked on resilience on the persons, and the moral values of the persons are creating hope for us. And then during the planning of the treatment also we should look to the legal situations. So when we are treating the patient, but also we should look also to the security side, and also the continuity of the treatment is very important. It can be inside the prison or at the moment of coming out of the prison, but the treatment must continue. And also in the future we need to have the possibility of going on with the treatment programs also within the prisons. And especially we have to deal with the prosocial behaviors, and we need to create rewards and give support to positive behaviors, and we need to restrain some negative behaviors, and to create a positive pathway for the patient. And also other comorbidities should be also treated. of course, the comorbid situations are very important. Some comorbid situation causes the use of substances, and sometimes the substance can cause to the increase of comorbidity. So you shouldn't say that first I treat the dependency and then I treat the comorbidity, but that's not right. And as you, I have been the founder of the Amatem in Ankara, and then in Ankara for the comorbidity we had the chance of dealing with comorbid patients, because we had a hospital besides the psychiatric clinics, but in Amatem's, so in specialized centers in Turkey, people say in the hospitals that they don't want to admit the psychotic patients inside because they have some security issues. But in our NP hospital, we have a special area for them and with security possibilities, and this means that we need to treat the comorbidity altogether. Also, the medicinal therapies are very important. This is a brain disease, and our 13th principle, and we need to evaluate the risks of and then create the treatment pathway according to that. I mentioned that we are a social country, a social state, but in Europe, for example, the hepatitis C treatment is paid by the state. But in Europe, the state, the government, they don't pay for that. It's a 3 months cost of the treatment is 40,000 Turkish liras. It's a serious cost, but the government pays for that. So we just have to scan for that. And what you can do on that area, so you can be ex-user, as a psychologist, as a nurse, or social services expert, or a consultant. You can work as a consultant, and so wherever is your situation, you will ask the questions: did we evaluate it well, and how did we do it, and did we question other risks? Then we can never say it's enough. So we need to train ourselves all the time. There are so many things to teach because the science advances very fastly. That's why we say let's learn. So learn new things, some innovations on treatment, and let's learn how to create a connection between the legislation and the treatment. And so if you want to make a good management of the patient, we need to know all these angles. There are new, of course, as I mentioned before, there are new treatments that are giving hope, and one of them is the deep brain stimulation. It's transmagnetic brain stimulation. It may seem complex, but it is not so complex in one way or another. So we create a magnetic field, and some fields in the brain are stimulated. So it started with depression treatment, which is resistant to drug treatment, and it's indicated in many countries, and also it's being used in PTD, and also you need the baseline data, and you see that the PTD points are now lowered after the use of that equipment, and with the stimulation of the insula area, the craving signs are lowered. And we are working together with an Israeli group, and we are using on that mechanisms, and they have the same bioneurology mechanisms, and it is directed to decrease the craving. First, we create a craving in our patient, so and then during that craving, that network opens, and together with neuro navigation, we send a stimulus to the right place. So we do on smoking addiction, on gambling addiction, and on drug addiction, and we have applied it. We have applied that on our 8 or 90 patients, and we will share the results afterwards with you. And we are making the set analysis, and the cocaine abstinence ratio is now higher. As you can see, it's a placebo, and then this is the real treatment. After the 3rd month, we see that it is effective compared to CAM. And also the alcohol addiction, you can see the results, and on smoking also there are similar results. And also it has been used for obese patients, and professor, especially on obesity, our professor is working on cognitive treatment works, and sometimes we are speaking with him that the deep TMO can be used for obesity also in some cases. So it's in cases where we cannot treat with other techniques, this kind of technique can be used, and with neuro navigation we are able to detect the field. And I would like to thank all of you again, and I would like to welcome all of you again. I hope that today we will have a fruitful meeting, and when you are going to leave this place during the evening, you will have in your minds that to come back again here. And thanks again for your attention. Now we would like to thank to our professor. Now dear guests, now we are kindly inviting from Modus Psychiatry Center, Mr. Professor Dr. Kütük İnegöl will make his presentation called Understanding Addiction.
Merhaba.
Hello. Well, let me start by thanking the organizing committee, especially Nesrin Hanım, Sam, even if I don't know him very well, Çiğdem and Okan as well. Well, actually, Nesrin Hanım preempted certain parts of my speech, but I think it's always good to listen to these problems from different perspectives, so I'd like to thank her for laying the ground. This image is from late 60s or 70s. It's a poster used in UK and heroin use was very common, and so they put the photo of this young man with skin infections, liver problems, and certain notes. But it was seen that in years this poster had a reverse effect, that the use of heroin increased. And they make some research. They ask young people, what does this image say to you? They say, the responders say, we like this guy, he's very cool, we want to be like him. So the original intent was to make people dislike him, but in the absence of research, it did not work. So it tells us that addiction is a very complex problem. Yes, we're talking about a young man who is in ruins, but people want to be like him. People want to be cool. They're more interested in being cool. They're not interested in any other morbidities associated with this. I'd like to talk about a dilemma which was told to me at the healthcare department in Netherlands. This is what they told me. In Netherlands, abuse of heroin is reduced, but we are doing more prevention work. And we said, why? We asked them, if the numbers are decreasing, then why are you doing this kind of prevention work? Because they said, you don't see heroin users on the street. People don't see them, and people don't understand the results of this behavior, so we want to make sure that they understand. So it's a dilemma, and it's a dilemma indeed, because when the use of substances is less, we should not assume that the problem is no more. We should always know that it's lurking in the dark, and we should be prepared. And research, therefore, is very important in addiction. You can't simply say, I felt like doing this, I felt like doing that. Addiction is a very complex problem, and you have to know about its dynamics. This is a great study. I think it's by Dennis. In early phase addiction, and then the period where healing starts. Actually, it's a very long process that we're talking about. Here it increases, and it's after 35, or at the earliest it's after 21 that the healing starts. Well, once this process starts, how long the study shows how long it actually is and how much effort it requires to tackle. And another study checked for how long addicts maintain a certain status or situation. 76% of the healed, they stand here, and only 35% of those under treatment are under fixed situation, and most of them are changing places, or so the addicts we see here this day and there another day, or in another place. maybe in one institution now, in another institution later, and maybe in jail after a certain time. So if this is such a mobile field, we have to be very mobile as well. I mean, you can't simply sit back and expect the addicts to come to you. I mean, why should they come? This question. And why should they get treatment?
Keyifli bir durum. Yemişim.
Well, it's really fun.
Hayatta hiçbir şey umurumda değil. Biz ne diyoruz?
Because life is good, you know. We tell them to have a treatment. We tell them get treated, get a job, work and work a lot, and have a burnout syndrome. I mean, why this person should switch from the left side to the right side? And without that one, this person seems quite happy. So we have to provide an answer for that question. We can't simply tell people to come and get a treatment. Yeah, of course, motivational interviews are necessary. There are points we need to be able to attract them. And, you know, some say don't spend a lot of money on addicts. On the contrary, if you spend on the addicts, this money comes back to the society. And I saw this thing in a state in Europe. They keep paying the salaries of addicts. Why? Because they say if they go out of a job and they will have no money, and then they're going to have to go through problems and then relapse, and then so they keep paying their salaries to make sure that these people are staying in treatment. So it's not just out of their good hearts, it's a pragmatic approach. They say these people should be rehabilitated, become part of the economy again, and become retired. Otherwise, I will have to pay for their retirement. So, people do not want to be locked up away. So we need the kind of things that would motivate them. Here is a data from Ministry of Health, and I was the one who did the research. Synthetic cannabinoids. Synthetic cannabinoids used to be one of the most important problems, and this shows the rate of people went into Amatem with a synthetic cannabinoids, and it peaked in 2014, and we don't know what happened in 2016 and 17, but probably it's following a downward trend. The volatile substances, they're here, and there is an intersection point right there. Paint thinners, glues, sniffing. This was a very big problem when I was in school, and then these people disappeared. Then there appeared the bonsai people, the synthetic cannabinoids. They're not very different people. There's not a significant difference there. What's happening here is a shift in substance abuse, paralleling changes in society. And what happened that gave rise to this kind of change? Probably this will go downward. Something else is going to start to increase, something that is not in our charts yet. Something like a new design drugs or THC containing substances called skunk. But we don't know what the next thing will be yet. And again, based on MOH numbers, until 2012 there isn't a hospitalization for methamphetamine. But then there is a huge increase because this was freshly launched on the market. What happened? Why did it go into the market? Why did people prefer it, take it up? All of these testify that the addiction is very complex and urge us to think in great detail and approach every matter from different perspectives. And looking at the AMATEMs, the drug rehabilitation centers in the public domain, the average times a patient was coming to AMATEM was 2.53 times a year. Is this treatment? I mean, if they came only 3 times, it means we're not doing any treatment. I mean, 1.5 hospitalization in a year. I think this overlaps with the US figures. But coming to outpatient treatment, including psychosocial therapy as well, it's 2.35 times. If it's only 2.5 times in a year, no one can talk about increasing psychosocial resilience. So the patients will be going in circles and coming back to the same point. And unfortunately, the number of AMATEM centers are increasing, but their qualities are not increasing. And the question here is this: how to bring patients into AMATEM? Why should they come into the center? This is the important question again. In early 2000, I worked for 5 years, 5-6 years in AMATEM, and then I switched to CHAMATEM. And the problem was, I had a problem with my chief. Because my chief told me, you're not spending enough time within the center, you are outside the center a lot of times, trying to increase awareness, promoting AMATEM, and we couldn't make it work, so I left. And my position is, if we sit behind the desk, we can't reach enough number of people. We will only have served their immediate needs, and then they will go and come back and keep doing that. Addiction is similar to these balls. I mean, which one will bounce more, which one will happen when, and it's very difficult to hold all factors together. Mental problems, medical problems, life problems, legal problems, social problems. So many factors are intertwined together. Very difficult to follow up all of that. And they keep switching places, relocating. But there's one thing we know. The moment we say this patient is now cured, and then everything goes broken again. Why is this important? We need to be prepared for this if we are working with addicts. We can't simply reprimand people saying, oh, there, you did it again. It shows we don't understand addiction. It shows we don't understand that this is a natural part of the addiction process. If we can affect more than one balls at the same time, then we can say we're doing our jobs. Games of addiction, don't confuse it for Game of Thrones, because at the hospital we thought with the colleagues, we thought it was difficult to convey information about detox, and we said we wanted to gamify all the information materials. So we made it into puzzles, or we made it different games, the Wheel of Fortune, and they of course take group therapy, but it's easier for them to learn it through gamification. They have a lot of confusion going on, and considering all of that, it is difficult to convey the information, the basic information to them in the first place. So we call this games of addiction. This is how we name it. Because this is what you see. You tell this person to get up in the morning and come to group. They say they don't want to do it. They say they paid for the service and why do they have to do it? But when there is a game, they come for it. And this isn't a new invention, we have only innovated on them. And so we need to think about how to attract people. So it's a good idea to see addiction as a journey, but first we have to define this journey. This is the study by Dennis, as I was saying before. Well, if you take notice, from the age of 15 to 20, we see a lot of initial use, and the entrance into treatment is around the age of 30. So the starting of abstinence, like 1 year abstinence, starts after the age of 35. This study shows us an important chronicity, but it shows another thing as well. If we can catch these people in this part of the journey, and if we can put them into treatment, we could be more successful. But still there is a question, why would they come into treatment at the age of 20, 21, when they're hot-headed and everything's going for them? And then they're fed up with it, and then mostly during these ages they want to go into treatment. And apparently there is an important period of 4 or 5 years until they do this and they start to become abstinent. I call this the ATM, and what the institutions expect from us is simple as an ATM transaction. You put the card in, you take the money out. This isn't how you can do it in addiction. You can't simply put people in the hospital and then get results. We need to involve them at earlier periods in the treatment process. And there's another study about substance abuse and treatment careers. Well, an addict is going to start to be abstinent after an average of 27 years after the initial use of substance. So this was the starting, and 8-9 years after treatment career, abstinence will start. This is a fact. But this fact, what does it point at? What kind of insight is it offering to addiction workers? So, the better you start, the earlier you start treatment, the better. Second important lesson is you should go more slowly, more carefully once you start the treatment. And thirdly, how could we shorten this time? What can we do to ensure abstinence before 9 years? Again, all the same questions. Why should they get treatment? Why should they stay abstinent? I mean, it's not about us finding the answers to these questions. It's about helping the patient find the answers to those questions. Unless we can do that, that time will remain as 9 years. Is it repeated episodes or is it a chronicity? Well, if you ask me, addiction is a chronicity. So we need to deal with it as if we were dealing with a chronic disease. And which treatment? There are so many treatments out there. Which treatment modality should we choose? Which is more practical or applicable? So, which is more important? Frequency or length of treatment? Is it better if you see the patient more frequently or if you spend a longer time with the patient? So, short and more frequent or long and less frequent? So, we understand that the length of or duration of treatment is important, and the longer the duration of treatment, the better the outcome. But you need to have a good way of explaining this to the addicts and answer the question as to why they should stay for a longer time in treatment. Late last year, I went to Afghanistan. I visited a 1,000-person addiction center with really poor conditions. Well, I thought this is no place to stay. And I asked, people actually stay there for a long time. And why do they stay? Because there was hot food, warm food, and a place to stay. I mean, that's why they stay. But if you have this kind of center in Turkey, no one would come there. Everyone would do everything to run away or escape. But considering the living standards in Afghanistan, and these people have the same conditions at their homes probably, or even better, so they can have hot meals. And of course, there are other kinds of conditions in other parts of the world, in Netherlands, in Europe. So every country should find ways of keeping people in the system based on their own unique conditions. Here is a study on cannabis abuse. You see, people who came more often, who came less often, and who came even less often. And looking at the cannabis use, we see that 4 interviews in 3 months seems to have done better job. It doesn't mean see the patients less. As long as you take a longer time, even if you're not seeing them very frequently, you get a higher rate of healing, and it's telling us the same thing. So, keep contact with the addicts. Do not let them go, and try to keep them in the system. This is what all the research is trying to tell us. And this is another group work by us, Samba. This is not the dance Samba, of course. This is a study in Erenköy with Rabia Bilinci. We compare the people who joined Samba and did not join Samba in the framework of probation, people coming from probation. And this was test results for them. And the people who joined Samba program, after the second test, the amount of substance found was decreasing, and so the intervals here were 15 to 20 days, so it's not once a week, but it's a process that completed 3 months. So this person became part of 6 Samba group therapies. And was it really enough for treatment? Well, it wasn't, but still it did some good. I mean, the probation groups, people don't want to come to them, and but it shows us that they're benefiting from it. And the numbers tell us there is an important difference between the 2 groups. There is another study. So keep them within treatment. Don't think they're not receiving. Don't think they're resisting. Even if they seem to resist, even if they seem not to take anything, they will take certain things away from this experience. So, also, if you see these people more often, the satisfaction increases. But we hear that they don't want to come often, but once they come more often, they're more satisfied. What we call this? We call it ambivalence. And ambivalence is the one thing we want to see, that we expect to see. So I'm trying to explain ambivalence is quite natural with these people. What will help us overcome this ambivalence? It's us. They will not do it on their own. We will help them get out of ambivalence because it's in their nature to be ambivalent. But we can ask ourselves whether we can help these people get out of ambivalence. But what do? We criticize them, saying this is a very ambivalent case. They keep changing their minds. They don't stay in treatment. But the right question is, what are the right techniques I should use to help them get out of ambivalence? And you will see some very good changes in the process and in the patient. So starting from the early years of addiction, we have an inclination to blame the addict, but before doing that we should criticize ourselves. What did I do wrong? What could I done more? And if we do that, things will be much easier. And this study is from Yeşilay's Yedan Center, and I'm a counselor for the team there, a consultant for the team there. So what changes during the monitoring? This shows the rate of dropouts, and during the time of second interview it decreases 40%. Sorry, I'm talking about the healing rate. After the second interview, so how many times they've come on average? 2.4 times. So if they come for the second interview, they will come more than 4 times. So as addiction workers, our first duty is to make sure that we bring them in for a second time, because if you can do that, you will have doubled the likelihood of their coming back to you. So I'm talking about an outpatient center. Well, there are so many reasons people will not come back, but we have an important role to play. And this is the average number, as you can see. So the first thing we need to do is make sure they come in for the second interview. So I tell the team over there, are you successful or not? Don't tell me many things. What is your rate for bringing people in for the second interview? I mean, it is the duty of the therapist to help. If it's so easy, maybe you should go ahead and do it. And that's our job, and we will try to do it, no problem. Another one of Yedan data, another study we did there. If you had 3 or more meetings with the family of the patient, you more than double the abstinence for more than 1 month rate of the patient. Well, let's say you had one meeting with the family, then there is certain likelihood of more than 1 month abstinence. But if you have 3 or more meetings, you will get even a better results. And the same applies to dropout rate. So we need to have at least 3 meetings with the patient's family. Maybe this number may differ in different parts of the world, but this number is for Istanbul. Well, I had a meeting with the family, yes, but how many times did you meet the family? So keeping close contact with the family. So one of those balls, bouncing balls, was the family. So if you keep contact with the family, you start controlling another one of those balls. Well, the most important problem of ours is relapse. And we thought, how could we communicate this to our patients? Because usually, here is how the addicts present to us. They say, well, it's over for me. I'll never use it again. So what do you think is the likelihood of you using again? No, never. It's over. But there is this possibility, and we have to be able to communicate it. And so we wanted to develop an inventory for that, and one that's called Mori. And we fill it, and when we are meeting with the patient, we show them the results screen. Red shows high risk, blue shows low risk. Looking at the screen for this person, we understand that the feeling of emptiness or idleness is a relapse risk for them. Stress is also another factor, and also being surrounded by people, self-confidence, and some other factors are also important. So we tell the patient, first, you shouldn't be idle. Second, you shouldn't be overconfident. And their typical reaction is, huh. So what are we using here? We're using a feedback technique, which has gained importance in the recent years. So it is not something coming from you. It's something that already belongs to them. It's like looking at the mirror for them, and they realize these are the greatest risks for me. Because if you simply say, don't be overconfident, and they would snap, why would I be overconfident? I would never do that. So, but when you present it in a structured feedback format like this, they have a better chance of working on themselves. Of course, we are improving our feedback models. Treatment model selection is important. There are certain criteria. It should be evidence-based. There are many centers in Turkey who claim to be very successful. Yeah, you are successful, but according to what? A new drug has come out. How effective is it? Are there double-blind studies? What is the cohort size? So if somebody is talking about a treatment model, I ask for a publication. I try to check the study details. What is the study design? Is it double blind? Is it so? Otherwise, everybody claiming to do something, and we've seen a lot of examples. And the second criterion is that the treatment must be standard. As person A and person B applying the same treatment across the center. And third is it should be applicable or feasible. I'll give you one example, an anecdote from years ago from Diyarbakir. I was working at a center there, and a colleague of ours came from Germany. He used to work in Germany. He brought this German system, German treatment to Diyarbakir, and he was to stay there for 6 months. Well, this treatment, it didn't work in Diyarbakir, and because this system, this center was located downtown and very close to their own neighborhood. And so the kids, they would see their parents and families, and you tell them to stay there 6 months without going out. So it didn't work. So they resisted a lot. So this treatment was a good treatment, but it didn't work. So what is healing? We're talking about healing the patients, but what does it really mean? Even if it might feel that we have a very good knowledge of what it is. This discussion has gained in prominence over the last years. So the black bars here are target symptoms, and the white ones are showing social healing. So, as you can see in addicts, substance abuse did not decrease, but social healing increased. So, what are we going to say? These people are not healed? But there is a lot of social healing. So, how do we regard this person? Will we say he or she did not heal? Or maybe we should ask, how much did he or she heal? There are so many factors related to healing. First of all, abstinence from the substance. What about psychosocial healing? Another discussion is between cure and care. The duration of healing. Some say we heal a lot of people, and we are 90% successful. How long does it last? 1 week. Is this healing? No. So, how did we evaluate or assess this healing? Did we do observation? Did we do urine tests? Also, what was the reliability of the assessment tool that you used? What was the relativity of healing? Well, I got healed. I took a job. It wasn't a proper job. My friend took a better job, is making good money. I'm not regularly going to work, is going regularly to work. So do we have the same level of healing from a psychosocial point of view? Because this creates some kind of relativity. Or is there any difference between our healing? What's the level of healing? So, in the world, in order to say that the accidents have decreased, there should be a decrease of more than 12%, for example. Or if you say infant deaths decreased, it should be a decrease more than 5%. So, if we apply this principle to addiction, what is the level of healing that is notable? We did observation, and we see physical healing and healing in some capabilities, but there isn't any healing in terms of social setting, family, other work. Are they healed or not healed? There is no difference there. Well, this is what it shows. We have physical healing in the shorter run, But these other kinds of healing will take place probably in the longer run. So we will need to define healing in a better way. So we try to develop an inventory called addiction follow-up index or addiction course index, and we fill this in every interview, taking into consideration all those factors, and we take into account psychosocial healing as well.
So when we fill up all these questions during all these encounters, we have a kind of graphics, and I will mention about it. I will mention it a little bit later. But we share these graphics together with our patient, and these are 8 items, and we check for those items from very good to worst, and then we evaluate the healing situation according to each item, and we get at the end this kind of graphic. And the importance of this graphic is that if it is red, the problem continues, you didn't change. Yellow, you have changed, you have less points, you are using less, you are employed, but everybody is changing at this level. This is not an important change. You have changed, yes, good, it's a good success, but the others, the ones that are similar to you, this is not a significant change compared to them. But when it reaches to green, yes, you have a better change compared to your peers, and you are better than them. You have changed your life more than them, and you have new type of life, you have style of life, and so this gives us a healing. But there is also the blue ones, and these are the ones that they have never used drugs or any kind of substance. If you reach to this blue below this line, it means that you are abstinent from the drug as much as the ones that never used those drugs, and you are healed. And if that person remains at blue, it's a real healing for us. For green ones, yes, you are good, but you must be better. Yellow, yes, you have an effort, but you don't have a real development. And if it is red, this situation is bad. And there's another thing for tracking. This is gone well, then it went out here. But what happened? What happened and you have converted from blues to reds? And this is a relapse index situation, and we have the change index. It's a social method. It's a method that is used in psychology a lot, and also we are trying to understand if this is a reliable change. And if you want to summarize it, maybe so change or not to change, but the question is how much did you change, and also the approach to the therapy and the motivation of the patient are very important issues here. Yes, this situation is just like a journey, and sometimes you lose your way and you ask yourself, where am I? And then you are in an area where you feel comfortable and you feel well together with your patients, the addicted patient. Then afterwards inside a narrow area and you feel depressed, and this is an addiction situation. You should follow it and you should help it, and so then your patient will be alright. Thank you. Now we would like to thank to our professor. Now, dear guests, we have a 15 minutes coffee break. Then we will again meet here. Dear participants, welcome to our program again. So now we will have Mr. Dr. Fatih Fifal, Director of Palestine Red Crescent Society Resource Center, in order to make his presentation called Psychosocial Support in Unstable Situations.
Yeah, good evening, good afternoon, I don't know, good morning. It's really so difficult to say when we are now. My name is Fathi and I have the honor to be really here. Thanks a lot for inviting me, and I want to thank every and each one who was really working hardly to have this event. Actually, after hearing all of the speeches from the morning until now, I have to rethink and to reorganize my thoughts. And I will try my best to be having such as balance between the researches and the practical field. As we said, the scientific researches, they have a talk, and the practical life, let's say, between two rackets, also have a talk. And I believe that one of the biggest challenges that we have in our work, even if we are working with drug addiction or any kind of humanitarian work, it's how to link these two issues together. And we create, I don't know if it's existing in other languages or not, something we name it practicum. How to have the practical and theoretical issue together, and I still believe that it's not really an easy issue. My presentation is not really a scientific presentation. It doesn't mean that because I don't believe in science, but I will try my best to put between your hands what exactly I'm doing the last 25 years. I spent 12 out of this 25 working with drug addicts and drug addiction issue, trying to understand what's going on. And I still remember that I was asking myself 3 questions. First of all, did I really able to do anything with them? Did I can help? Did I can add any kind of difference in their life or not? And from there, I developed something personal, that if you don't know what to do, you do things that you know. And I step back a little bit, I'm coming to do what I know, or I have to begin really learning more and more. What can I do? It's not what I know, because to do the things that we know, it's really more easy. This is what we have. We go with our tools, we begin working, and as we said, it's not important where we reach, and after that it's really easy, as our colleagues they were saying, to say that we success. And we have 100 patients who, I don't know, spend 3 hours or 3 months or 3 years without using or without relapsing. But did really we have a change in their life? And from there also, when I'm thinking about changing, are we going to change them, or we are going to help them to change themselves? And there I was asking myself, okay, if we want to help them changing themselves, what we really need? And it came to my mind that, I don't know, now it's scientific or not, that if we do somehow the 3 things that we believe in, that trying to work a little bit in culture, and when I'm talking about culture, I'm talking about my own culture as a therapist between 2 rackets, or the culture of the drug users themselves, or the culture of the local community where they are living. And it's a big challenge. The second issue, if we want to help them changing themselves or having a change, what we can do to change a little bit the infrastructure that we have. And when I'm talking about infrastructure, I begin from the organizations that I'm working with, or the centers that they are accepting or having those people, and how we can really influence this infrastructure to be able to respond to the needs of the people. It's not to the needs of the people who are creating these centers. And the third issue that I was thinking, how we can influence the law. Because without having such as supportive law, it doesn't make any sense. Even if we work a lot in prevention, and also, sorry to say that, I don't believe a lot in prevention. I believe a lot in protection, actually. How to protect ourselves, how to protect our clients from ourselves, how to protect our client from even the law that existing. Did the law really supporting the people who are trying to recover, trying to reorganize their lives, or it's really so difficult after they stop using to be in a such as, let's say, peaceful relationship with this law, even if it's related to the traditional laws or to the official law that we are talking about. And I continue actually asking myself a lot of questions. And I developed my own talk, I don't know if it's right or not, that questions are blinds. Answers are blinds. Questions only have eyes. It means if you want really to help people, we have to ask ourselves a lot of questions. It's not to run and to find answers or to find solutions, because I still believe that there is no one solution. Each human being have his own issues. It means we have to deal with each and every human being as a different person. It means that we have to respect, we have to accept, and we have to develop the treatment, if we are talking about treatment, intervention according to his or her need, according to his or her capacity, according to his or her culture. And after that we can really say, did we our best as people who are interfering or doing their work, or just we are going to our work, sitting in our desks and trying to give advice to people. And from there, I can say, did we really put a lot of effort in knowledge or in awareness? And when I'm talking about awareness, I'm talking about self-awareness. Because people, they are not really in need of a lot of information. They can find it wherever. When they are coming to us, really they are looking inside themselves. They are not looking for any kind of information coming from here and there. Did we really have such as peaceful also relationship with our own personalities as a therapist before we try to help people to be in a such as peaceful relationship with themselves? Or we don't even believe sometimes with what we are doing. It means that we have to stop, personally saying, we have to stop asking why. Because it's not our role as people who are working directly with the beneficiaries. Maybe it's the role of the scientific people, the researchers people, to ask why. We have to focus in how we can really help people. And if we are going there, I think that we can contribute a lot in what we are doing. We can have an additional value when we are working with people. After 12 years working with drug addicts, I recognize that, okay, there is a lot of other people who are really in need of help. It's not only drug addicts. It doesn't mean that I'm stopping or stop working. I'm still doing some stuff, but not really focusing in that. And I feel after that working with all of the people, it's more or less the same foundations. I mean, that the drugs, it's one of 1 million problems that we have in our life. If we can help people in a different way, maybe we can protect them being addicts in the future. And when we are talking about addicts, it's not only related to drugs. Addict for any kind of behaviors that it really affects their life. And a little bit I switch working with people who are affected by, let's say, disaster events or crisis events. And I begin more and more working with mainly kids, children from 8, 9, 10, 12 years old. That it's my main focus, and I believe in to raise a child. It takes a village. It means that we have to work hard really to work with children. Working with children alone, it doesn't make any sense. It needs really a lot of work with the parents, with the teachers, with the counselors, with the neighborhood, with the infrastructure around the children. Even from the kindergarten, we can begin really working with people to protect them, and in the future, we can really say that we have, such as evidence-based research saying that there is an effect of our intervention. I don't believe, sorry to go back in the same, I don't believe that we are doing 6-month prevention program in Istanbul, and after that we are saying, okay, it doesn't make any difference. Yes, it will not do any difference. If we begin working with the children from the early childhood, it will make a lot of difference. And from where I work a little bit with my colleagues to develop such as comprehensive, I name it, I don't know if it's comprehensive or not, holistic and case management, based in a case management approach. And we begin doing, first of all, such as voluntary picking people who are ready to work with us. The whole program is voluntary based. It means that we have 500 people who are working in this program free of charge. Even we don't pay the transportation, even we don't pay the communication, we don't pay anything. And our main target group was the university professors. Because I'm a doctor, it's more easy for me to enter, the universities and to have such as good relationship with the university teachers. And we discovered that, yes, they have a lot of knowledge, but most of them, they don't have any practical, skills, let's say. I'm sorry to say that. And we offer the place where they can come, the patient that they can benefit, and they offer their knowledge. And from there we begin. Now we have, as I mentioned, 500 teachers from the universities and students who are doing their PhD and master degree working in this program. And the program, we managed to have it in 5 levels. The first level, it's to help those 500 students to be able to understand and to be trained more and more, to be able to work with the people under the main foundation, don't harm. Do whatever you want. Try whatever you want, but don't harm people. The first 3 things that we try to put it in their minds, that we have to ensure safety of the people. When I'm talking safety, it's a physical, emotional, sexual safety, dignity of the people, and the rights. And after that, do whatever you want. Don't come and tell me that, yes, I'm coming from a behavior I don't know, cognitive. Okay, I respect and I accept all this schools, but at the end of the day, do whatever you want. Try, just try. Keep in mind these 3 things, and after that, do whatever you want. And after that, after we rehabilitate them, we try. It's not rehabilitating, training, sorry. We have the second level. We develop a program, we name it Children Affected by Armed Conflict. And this program, it's mainly to deal with children who have a little bit difficulties. Because also I don't believe that most of the people develop a PTSD signs or No, okay, they are living in such as difficult situation, they are living in traumatized situation, but doesn't mean that they are traumatized. If we are dealing with the people who are having such as events traumatized, it means that we are going to use the tools that we have. We are coming with our tools running, and we want to fix the people. If we believe that, okay, they are living in a traumatized situation, but they are not traumatized, means that we develop with them the possibilities, we develop with them the tools, and we develop with them the ways of intervention. And from there, we focus in this program in the strength of people, it's not the weaknesses. And from that place, we can enhance really the resilience, because never ever we can enhance the resilience if you focus in the weaknesses of people. It means that they are not able to do anything. But if we focus in their, let's say, strength, we can really develop more and more their resilience. And the idea mainly to rebuild the hope, because I believe rebuilding a hope with people, it makes a huge difference. What people they are in need to be able to rebuild their hope and to rebuild their life in the way that they can do, in the way that they believe that they want to do it. It's not us to design how they can rebuild their or reorganize their life. They have to decide, and our role is to help them, to help themselves, to be with them as much as we can if they are really in need of us. The second part of the program, it's related to the parents of the same children, because we believe working with children themselves alone also it doesn't really help a lot. If we are working with the same parents of the same children, we can have the balance. It means that whatever we are doing with the children, the parents, they can understand. They can develop their skills to be able to do or to work with their children. And we develop a small program also, we name it Love Bridge. Because I believe, our colleague in the morning, he was talking about love. Yeah, I believe that if we focus in that, if we can love each other, if we can love ourselves, definitely we can contribute a lot in our life, and we can change a lot of things that we don't really want it to be, or we can do more and more in our life. The other, or the third part of the program, it was related to the school counselors and school teachers, and the idea also to enhance as much as we can the capacity of the teachers of the same children and the counselors of the same children to be able to understand the needs of their children, to focus more in how they can raise them in a such as good way. It's not how to feed them with information, because you know better than me, we are coming from the same place, that the educational system, it's not really helping us to think. It's helping us to know. It's helping us to answer. Yes, I'm going to the school just to read, to hear the teacher, and after that I'm going to do my exam. Oh, yeah, I'm getting full mark. And when I'm coming back, the parents, they are not asking me about how it was my day, which kind of relationship I built today, what exactly I do with my colleagues. They're asking me, the parents, how it was the school, did you have a good, how it passed, did you get such as good mark, did you have any problem with any teacher, because they are afraid if I have problem with teachers, it means that I will not have a good marks, it means that I'm not able to enter the university, it means that I'm not going to be a doctor or an engineer, because this is what they are looking for. And step by step, the teachers, they begin more and more able to integrate some of our sessions or a little bit of the program within their normal teaching sessions or hours or schools. I'm not saying that we reach or we success 100%, but there is a lot really of schools who are interested and they are cooperated, and because of that I was mentioning that also the law, it's really important. Until now we cannot really influence the Ministry of Education to accept having this kind of way of teaching in most of their schools. And now we are in a process, it's not a process, also it's in place, that we have something we name it Resource Center, that now we begin more and more having individuals who are coming for therapy, and it's almost free of charge, because it's not really easy for the people to offer the psychotherapy. It's a little bit expensive. We are talking about more or less $50 per session for who is able to do that. Because everything is voluntary based, also the psychosocial center or the resource center that we are talking about, we begin more and more having people to ask for individual and group therapy. And in the same time, we began developing in most of the districts in Palestine something we name it psychosocial teams, or psychosocial emergency teams. Those who are really interested from the universities, that we go to the universities and we begin doing some kind of specific training for emergency intervention whenever there is a need. And you know that on a daily basis in Palestine we are in need of psychosocial intervention and support. It means that if I get back, we were trying to focus as much as we can in our staff, in children, in parents, in teacher and counselors, and in the end to reach as much as we can the community through these 4 components of the project that I was mentioning. And last year we were trying to do more or less something related to the drug addiction in Palestine, but unfortunately it was a little bit difficult, and you know better than me that coordination is not really an easy issue. Because of that, we try our best to continue coordinate with service providers, either if they are official service providers, I mean the government, or the local service providers, the NGOs who are really trying to do their best, but it's not really enough what we are doing there. All of this, what we are trying to do, that maybe one day we will have a smile. If this child have a possibility to smile, I think that we will have a possibility also to help our beneficiaries as much as we can, also in their way. Thank you so much for hearing, and if there is any question, I'm ready to.
Sayın Flafel'e teşekkür ediyoruz. Değerli
Would like to take to Mr. Flafel. Now we have a 1 hour break. Then we will start with the practical workshops, and then thanks for your participation to our event.